You can learn anything online nowadays, literally anything you can imagine. Whether that's programming, video editing, designing, whatever it is, you can learn it online. And I know because I have learned a lot of stuff online. Right now, I'm 19 and I run a software development agency of my own. I've co-founded other startups. My first business I started when I was 13, and basically I learned everything I know online practically. Now, the thing that most people struggle with is, how do you get there? How do you learn online? Because one of the issues is that you have no structure. The content is there, and I think most people will recognize that. The reason people still end up paying for coaches and trainers and teachers and programs and schools is because they want the structure. And I wanted to provide a framework that I used through the several times that I did things. So, I look back at the times that I learned different skill sets, and I looked at the frameworks and the patterns and the steps that I kept repeating. And I saw, okay, well, if I keep doing these things and it seemed to work pretty decently for me, I think this is a reasonable framework. And this is now what I apply when I want to learn a new skill online, and what I think other people can benefit from as well. So I thought I'd share that in a quick video. It's a 4-step framework, but there's a 5th step if you really want to go all in on the skill. And I think it works for pretty much any skill that you can think of. Step 1, get a basic tutorial. You need a basic tutorial to understand the terminology of what you're working with, understand a little bit of the world that you're trying to step into. You need to understand the jargon, you need to understand the lingo and the context of things. So when you get into later, more advanced tutorials, you can understand a little bit more of what's going on, even if your skill is not quite at that level yet. So in the context of programming, this might be things like variables, right? Like if loops and while loops. You got to know what those are, so when people talk about them, you can keep up and you can understand. For me, it was Code Academy's HTML and CSS course. It's really basic. You make a website that says like, hello world, I like bears. There's like one image of a bear. The website looked like it was made in 1992, and it's probably a pretty useless skill set, but it gave you that understanding and the context of a few key things, and you can learn very quickly those basics, those fundamentals. And then you're ready for step 2. Now, step 2 is thinking up a project that you want to build that's a little bit more complicated, but not something too big that it would take you, like months and months to build, because it'll get really boring and, it doesn't get fun when you can never make any progress. So the idea behind step 2 is that you think of something that you want to make that would either be a cool portfolio piece that you would like, or, even a kind of side project of sorts. And then you want to be specific about the details that you have in mind. Try and get into the nitty-gritty stuff that you imagine and pull from, different sources. Let's say you're learning video editing, right? So you might, take something from Ali Abdal's video, take something from some other guy, and then you think of, okay, I like this transition. I like the way the text moves here. Things like that. And once you nail the vision that you have in your mind for what you're trying to build, then you can do step 3, which is building. And building this will probably require a couple different tutorials, and that's the whole idea behind step 3, which is use a patchwork of tutorials, mix them in together. And if you use different tutorials, you can start to piece together better contexts and understand from one tutorial to the other, what changed, what this guy's doing a little bit differently, whatever. To illustrate exactly what I mean by using different tutorials, it's not by using 3 different tutorials to learn the same thing, because that might be confusing, things might not work together, but having tutorials for different small parts and bits and bobs of the project that you're trying to make. In video editing contexts, this might be a transition that you want to do, some kind of effect, whatever it is. And then you look up a tutorial just for that thing. In an isolated environment, you learn how to do that thing. And then you learn how to make the menu open, but only to halfway of the page because that's how you want it. You want to make the button hover effect in a particular way. So you find a tutorial for that. All of a sudden you've used, maybe 5 or 6 different tutorials to throw this project together, and you've learned different things in each one. You may not immediately understand everything, but that's okay. It's part of the process. That's just how things work, right? So then you've completed step 3, right? You've completed your project, whatever. Maybe then there's step 4, which is rinse and repeat. Go back to step 2, think of something else you want to build, and then try and build it. What really pays off here is just having optimism about what you can build. Just feeling like, okay, I think I can figure this out. I know I can figure this out. And then you just go after it. And once you build a couple more portfolio pieces, 2 things happen. Firstly, you actually start learning the skill properly, right? And it gets really exciting because you start being able to do stuff by yourself without all those tutorials. Secondly, you're starting to build a portfolio of items with that skill set. So let's say that you wanted to stick to front-end development and you stuck to it and you got really good at it. Suddenly you've built up this small portfolio of little projects here and there that people can see, and employers are interested in that. And off the back of that, I was offered job opportunities from the time I was 16, 17, like pretty much people coming to me and through people that I met and I talked about my work, whatever, and they asked me to work on their projects. And now step 5, which is if you really want to go all in on a skill, you gotta find other people. There's a certain point beyond which only other people can help you continue to level up, because they gotta point out your blind spots, and your blind spots, by definition, you cannot find them, right? And so you can hire a coach, a trainer, a mentor, go to a mastermind, you can go to a school, but that's really if you wanna continue kind of deeper into that skill. But at a basic level, you can get that skill to a really, really good point without going that far. There's the 80-20 rule, the Pareto's principle, which says, you get 80% of the value from 20% of the input. This is the case with learning as well. So if your objective is just to be able to edit a couple videos, then you don't need to hire somebody. You can probably figure it out by yourself. Over time, if you really want to get good at it, eventually you're going to need to find other people for sure. Also, if you really want to go into a skill for the long term, then surrounding yourself with other people is really going to help, because at the end of the day, what's going to keep you engaged in something over a really long time horizon is going to be the relationships that you form. The skill in and of itself may lose a little bit of the shine after a couple years doing it. Trust me, I know, because when I started doing development full time, suddenly it's not this like fun side hobby. When it becomes the main thing, that does change a little bit. So if you form relationships in that space, those can really keep you going when it becomes more tedious, and when you feel like you've been going in circles for ages, those relationships can really go a long way in terms of helping you stay consistent and just stay focused on continuing to do what you want to do. I genuinely believe that learning things online is one of the greatest opportunities of this century, because it is a door that has opened for the first time. You can learn anything from a laptop at home. That was never before possible, and I think more people should take advantage of that and make the most of it. There are still times and situations where schools make sense, and paying for things, you definitely need to do that at some point. But for a basic level, to get started, even to get a job in something, you don't need to pay for some kind of course. You can figure things out yourself, and I hope that with that framework, you can understand how you can actually do this from home without having to, find some kind of coach or something. I know, because I've seen a lot of my friends as well consider these boot camps for things like programming, and they're really expensive and they don't always make sense. You can do it alone if you make a portfolio of things and then you show people. Build in public, talk about it, and make a series of projects over time, and you can find opportunities in the space if you just say, hey, look, this is the work that I can produce, it's good quality, and you can let the work speak for itself. I hope that 4-step kind of framework helps for you to be able to learn anything that you want online, because it's absolutely possible. Trust me. I know, because I've seen so many other people do it and did it myself as well. And I think really everybody should make the most of that opportunity.